I wanted to do a couple of quick things. I was told at one hand back there that I had 20 minutes, and then somebody else said, you have as long as you want, which is a dangerous thing. I wanted to recommend two things. One is a book called The Trap by Sir James Goldsmith. The most incredible thing that I read in this that makes the rest of it fascinating to me in addressing things that are going on in our world as we speak, and which might be the kind of things that you could get involved in or do something about in some one way or another. He says in here that it is the greatest failure of the Western mind that we have come to measure success in numbers rather than understanding. Blows me away. An expression of understanding from our next speaker, who should be nominated for sainthood, except I don't want him to pass on to the next world. We've got to keep him around forever. The arch-druid, David Brower, one of our Winstar Award winners, said a little story in his book, and I asked him if I could share this with you, because it's also another side of the story that has to do about when you're pushing the river sometimes, as I feel like I'm doing quite a lot. He talks about in nature, making the wind blow can be a mistake. Making the wind blow can be a mistake. I know because I tried it. When I was 11, I had the idea of raising butterflies. I liked western swallowtails, which are exquisite creatures, about 3 inches in wingspan, yellow with a black border. Just above the tail, they have eye spots of a rainbow hue. My neighborhood had many swallowtails and was full of anise, apple butterfly food. I started with the eggs. Tiny caterpillars emerged, yellow banded squibs of black. The caterpillars later turned green and then into chrysalids. I waited. When the day came, the first chrysalid cracked. An antenna popped out. Another. Then the butterfly laboriously climbed out. The abdomen was extended, full of fluid that was pumped into the unexpanded wings as the butterfly clung upside down on a twig. 30 minutes later, the former caterpillar was aloft. A miracle, which was about to be circuited in my desire to help what I did not understand. As the remaining chrysalid split, I lent a finger. Very gently, I widened their cracking skins. The creatures promptly emerged. They just crawled about. What had been genetically designed had been undone. What was supposed to happen now could not. The flow of fluid was not triggered by the butterfly's own exertions and failed to reach the wings. They all died. I had tried to free them, and by freeing them, I had killed them. Be careful what you wish for. You might get it. Be careful what you do. But don't go from this place afraid to take action. Let me share with you in closing just a small action that I have taken. And I can tell you all kinds of things around it. I'll just read this letter which I've sent to every periodical that I'm aware of, from Newsweek to Time to People to Outside, whoever, to USA Today, everywhere, to see if I can get this printed. And so far I can't. I used to be a star. Oh, that reminds me. Please, while you're here, the new moon is tomorrow. Please, while you're here, if there's a clear night, get outside, away from town, and look at the stars. How many of you here have never seen the Milky Way? Especially you guys. Go out and see the stars. And one of the challenges I would give you is that throughout the coming years, every time there's no moon, get out of the city where you live, go out someplace and show some kid the stars. So, my little closing here. Alaska, a challenge for democracy. Alaska, like most people in lower 48, the mere mention of our 50th state conjures up a myriad of images and contradictions for me. Vast areas of wilderness undisturbed by humans. Grizzly bear, eagle, caribou, the majesty of Denali, and the glory of the Yukon. The technological marvel of Prudhoe Bay, Valdez, and the pipeline that connects them. The questions raised by Prince William Sound. The challenge of progress for the Aleut and the Eskimo, the challenge of restraint for the oil companies, the developers, and seemingly the 104th Congress. In the 1970s, I was among those who worked hard and long in support of legislation that would reflect a rising voice of restraint being heard all across America. In my television documentary, Alaska, America's Child, I expressed my feeling that much of the history of the lower 48 over the preceding 200 years was about to be repeated in Alaska, and in a much smaller time frame and with disastrous results. A vast majority of the American people and a bipartisan majority of both the House and the Senate seem to feel a similar concern. I experienced one of the most fulfilling days of my life, truly, when I stood with President Jimmy Carter, Secretary of Interior Cecil Andrus, and Conservationist Margaret Murray as the President signed the Alaska Land Conservation Act into law. With that signature, 85% of the land that showed the most promise for exploration and development, including all but 125 miles of Alaska's shoreline, which became part of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, was made accessible to the oil and gas companies. The remaining 15% was part of a land so unique, so beautiful, that whatever wealth might lie within it was deemed somewhat less precious than that which was upon it. The voice of the American people found harmony with that of the President and the Congress. The chorus that was raised said, "We will put aside this very special part of our heritage, hopefully forever, but at the very least until a greater need, even a national emergency, requires us to extract what is hidden beneath its surface." As I write these words, Congress has passed budget resolutions in both the U.S. House and the Senate that would open the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas development. Are we now in the midst of a national emergency based on oil shortage? Of course not. Have we drained Prudhoe Bay of its reserves? No. In fact, recent improvements in extraction technology have increased the lifetime availability of Prudhoe Bay's reserves to the year 2030. Have we explored and developed all the other areas that were made accessible by the Alaska Lands Act of 1980? Again, the answer is no. Why then are the members of the 104th Congress who call themselves conservatives so eager to desecrate these fragile and irreplaceable lands? Lands that were set aside with such conviction by the American people. Why are they unwilling to even raise the issue for public debate, hiding these intentions behind the banner of balancing the budget? These questions and others they raise make me wonder what it means to be conservative. Who does the government represent? The American people or the special interest groups like the oil companies, the tobacco companies, the National Rifle Association, and others who can buy the legislators they want with political action committees and lobbying dollars? Is this what we created democracy for? Is this how we want our government to work? I think not. Is this how we want the people who serve in government to serve us? I think not. How then, in a democratic society, can we justify any action to contradict the intent of the Alaska Lands Conservation Act without the knowledge and active participation of the American people? Are we going to allow ourselves to be victimized by blind convenience and political expediency? Again, I think not. At least I hope not. There is still time to make a difference. Final language to enable Congress to open the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to development would likely take place either through appropriation bills, such as for the U.S. Department of Interior, or in the 1996 Budget Reconciliation Act. Strongly encourage your legislators to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and other wilderness areas in the lower 48, like the Red Rocks Wilderness in Utah, from oil and gas development. Urge President Clinton to continue to oppose any legislation that would open any wilderness if it is not needed and it is not wanted. In recent years, it has been proven that greater efficiency and conservation can create more energy resources than does development. This Congress simply doesn't get it. Yes, we the American people want to balance the budget and get rid of the debt and burden we are leaving to those who will follow. Yes, we want to act responsibly for the present and for the future. Yes, we want to create a realistic, exciting, and sustainable future, but not at the expense of the environment that sustains us. Violating one more wild area to put a few more dollars in a few people's pockets is not the way. Opening one more wild area to unnecessary development is yet another act that perpetuates the waste the American people decry, and it too is not the way. To be human is to be nourished by the wild country, to know that there is a place where the eagle flies in freedom, the grizzly walks in majesty, and the caribou runs with the wind across the open tundra lifts the human spirit. Let's not let a few people in Congress, out of sight and out of touch with the American people's commitment to keeping some wild places alive for ourselves, for all people, and for the future, take actions that all of us will soon regret. Regret because we did not act. We did not stand up for the things that we believe in, for the things that we care for the things that we know are a big part of making us who and what we are as human beings. David Brower is going to come out in a minute. I can't urge you more to buy his book, Let the Mountains Talk, Let the Rivers Run. It might change your life. Part of what it might do is to teach you not to hesitate when you know what is right. Dancing on the thorns of indecision across the plains of hesitation, where many stop and wait, and in waiting die. But to be bold, to stand up and be counted. It's who we are, and it's about time. Choices in action. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for being here.
So yesterday, was it only yesterday? You were, no, you opened Friday.
Yesterday.
Oh, woo, you guys are great. Okay, and just real quick, neighbors, don't listen for a second. And you were talking about sending the article, that article that you wrote.
Yes.
To all the magazines. And you made the aside, I used to be a star. And what jumped into my mind was, what in the world are you thinking of? Laughing in the face of love. Who in the world do you think you are? A superstar? Well, right you are. And we all shine on like the moon and the stars and the sun.